Alright, so today in 8.8 we are solving for an indicated variable. Some of this is hard, but the thing is, think of the same steps that you would use if they were numbers to do it with letters. For the first couple, I had you do these in class. These are pretty easy because you just distribute and combine like terms and move the x to one side and move the numbers to the other side. Here I can combine the x or the 6 and the 12. Here I can combine my a's to get a negative 1a, my numbers to get a minus 8, my numbers to get a 3a minus 36. Use your calculators. Negative 12 and negative 24 is negative 36. You shouldn't have got a 12 there. Bring the x's to one side and the numbers to the other side. And I see that stuff cancels on each side. That is what I need with these. If you do it in two steps, there is nothing wrong with that. All I'm trying to do is say if I cancel something on this side, I got to cancel the other term on the other side. I get 28 equals 4a. So when I divide, of course, I get 7. I get negative 30 equals 5x. And when I divide, of course, I get negative 6. Now down here, if this was, well, 3x plus 5 equals 12, you would know what to do. You would subtract the 5 and then divide by 3. And it's the same kind of steps for these types of problems. For this to solve for b, to get this by itself, the first thing I got to do is get rid of that 10. And we talked about in class how you can't go y minus 10 and combine those, so you write y minus 10 when you can't combine it. The other thing I talked about was, this is dealing with fractions, okay, is that the opposite of 5/8 is to times by 8 and then divide by 5. So why don't we just do it at the same time? And I can do it just as simple as those canceling and writing that. Really, b is just 8/5 times y minus 10. If I want to put that in the numerator, I could. If I want to distribute it, I could do that as well. Area of a circle is pi r squared. Well, if I know the area is 81 pi, I just plug that in. Solve for r by dividing out the pi. R squared equals 81, and then square root it. R is plus or minus 9, but in this case, we're not going to have a negative radius. For the next problem, we have this coefficient of friction, which is mu, and that is what we need to find, which means we need to solve this equation right here by getting everything away from mu, which means do the opposite of the add or subtract first, just like I would on this problem here. So I get the f out of there. ma minus f equals negative mu w. And to get rid of what's next to it, I divide by the negative and by the w. So if I do that over here, I have mu by itself. ma minus f, or negative w. Not all these problems are going to be the same. The reason that I'm doing these problems is to give you more examples of the types of problems, especially on the back side. Those will be more relative to your problems. They should be easier of the two. Again, I have this formula, t equals 2 pi times the square root of m divided by k. And it says which of the following gives k, which means that that is what I'm solving for. So this is like 2 times pi times the square root of this. So to get rid of the 2 pi, I would just divide those out. So I get to here. And the next step to get to the k is to get rid of the square root, and we do that by squaring both sides. So I'm squaring this whole thing, which means distribute the 2 into every term. I get t squared, I get 2 squared, which is 4, I get pi squared, I'm just going to write it that way, equals m over k. And now I can do one of two things. I can flip both of these and just times by m and be done, or I can literally just cross multiply and divide, and we know how to do that. Solve it for k by just dividing by what's left. And there is my answer. Okay. Next page. Up at the top, we're talking about a rectangle here, and a rectangle has a width and a length. And the formula is literally length times width. If you don't remember that, base times height, length times width, whatever. If the width is 3 more than twice its length, is equals, so the width is 3 more than twice its length, and the length is just L. Okay? Plug those values in. I also know the area is 35, so I can plug that in right here. I know the length is L, and I want to write the other one in terms of L so that I have one variable to solve for. This is a problem on an SAT I would say skip and come back to because it is time consuming. It's not crazy complicated. You know how to do most of the stuff. The next step you do is distribute 3L plus 2L squared. And what you don't remember probably is that when you see this squared, I need to pull everything to one side and factor it. So I'm going to minus 35 from both sides. And I'm going to switch these two around just so I have it in quadratic standard form. And then you would factor that and set those factors equal to 0. So I have 2L and L. The factors 35 are 7 and 5. It happens to work out that they go in exactly that order because plus 10 and minus 7 will give me the 3L I have there. If I set this term equal to 0 minus the 5, I get negative 5, which can't be the size of a length. So if I set the other term equal to 0, of course you would add 7 and divide by 2 to get 7/2, which is 3.5. That is your length, which is what the question asks. If it asks to find your width as well, you just plug that in here. 2 times 3.5 is 7 plus 3 is 10, which makes sense because 3.5 times 10 gives me the 35. That's the area. Okay. Next I've got a quadrilateral. Doesn't matter what the size is because the sides are in a ratio of 1 to 2 to 3 to 6. But perimeter means add up all the sides. If I add that up, I only get 12. That's not what I need. I need 60. How can I get from 12 to 60? I get times by 5, which means times all the side lengths by 5. I've got the answer. But otherwise, it also means that if I put an x with each of these to see what that multiplier is, I can just add up all the sides and set them equal to the perimeter I need. This is 12x. Divide by 12 to get x equals 5. Now again, that's not the answer. It says find the lengths of the sides. So I just plug it all in. 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters, 15 centimeters, and 30 centimeters. Do they add up to 60? 15, 30, 60? Yep. There's my answer. Okay. Two more problems. They are both about planes. This plane takes off here. This plane takes off an hour later here. Just reading the problem. The first plane takes off at 300 miles per hour at time 0. At time 1, the other plane takes off at 400 miles per hour. Where does the second plane overtake the first plane? Well, this is the distance formula. Distance equals rate times time. Okay, I don't know the distance, but I know that it's going to be equal where they're equal, right? So I know the distance for the first plane has to equal the distance for the second plane, and then we have to say, well, where it overtakes it is after that time. So I've got rate times time of the first plane. I've got rate times time of the second plane. The rate for the first plane is 300. The rate for the second plane is 400. The first one take off at t. If the other one takes off an hour later, that means I have to subtract 1 from the time. So that becomes t minus 1. I'm going to distribute over on this side. I'm going to minus 400t to get the t on one side together. Negative 100t. And divide to get t to be 4 hours. But again, the question says, how long does it take for it to overtake it? So after 4 hours would be the answer. Not 4 hours and 1 minute. It could be 4 hours and 1 second. It could be a millisecond. Just we know it's after 4. Without doing any math, I could have done this picture. 2, 3, 4. After 1 hour, this plane is 300 miles per hour. This plane is 0. After 2 hours, this plane has gone 600 miles per hour. This plane's gone 400. After 3 hours, 900 and 800. After 4 hours, 1200 and 1200. And that's why the 4-hour mark is the key here to get me that answer without doing any math, just thinking about where they would meet. On the last problem here, two planes go in opposite directions. And the larger plane is flying 3, so here's the larger plane, here's the smaller plane. The smaller plane is going x, it's the other one's going 3 times faster. It's that. They are a total of 600 miles apart in 2 hours. How fast are they flying? So again, distance equals rate times time. And this is a combined because it's both planes rate. The distance we know is 600. The rate is 2, or the time, excuse me, is 2. The rate is the combined speed. So x plus 3x, which is 4x times 2 is 8x. And when I divide, I get 75. And it says how fast. So, okay, miles per hour. And the other plane, well, if that's going 75, 3 times that, so and 225 miles per hour. Which makes sense. If they're going that many miles per hour, after 1 hour, they would add to 300. After 2 hours, they would add to 600, which is what it says. Okay, your homework is the next page, the next 2 pages that I gave you in class. It's also in Google Classroom. There are a few problems that I X'd out. Make sure you double check that. Have a good day.